Hello, and welcome to a brand new Out of the Park Baseball 26 series. I've been playing these games for a few years now, and I have a couple thousand hours in them. And if you've been playing them that long, you understand that it becomes a little easy to break the game in a number of ways, and so you want to impose some restrictions on yourself to keep things interesting and challenging. One of the ways that the game gets broken is by having lots of players with amazing personalities. If you've got your captain or two and you've got a bunch of leaders, you're going to do fine. And once you know you're there and you're set for a dynasty, the only way you can really challenge yourself is by making financial restrictions or things like that. And I want to go a little different route. I want to do a playthrough of a team that has nothing but terrible personalities. Now, that should prove quite difficult because there's not as many players with terrible personalities in this game as you might think. On the flip side, acquiring them might be slightly easier because they're less desirable to other teams. And so I expect you can still remain competitive. But the question is, how competitive? Can you win the World Series? Can you make the playoffs every year? With nothing but a bunch of feuding jerks who thinks, that everybody else in the room is the bad guy. And there's a number of ways you can approach this. And so I've got some ideas, and we'll get into the rules of the challenge and figure out what team we're going to play. So to illustrate the rules for this challenge, I have pulled up an old save with the St. Louis Cardinals. That doesn't mean we are or are not playing the Cardinals. They are an interesting option. But they do have some players who will help me illustrate what I'm talking about when I mean bad personality. So Mason Wynn has 2 negative personality traits and 1 positive trait. He would qualify for the team. The rule is this. If a player has 2 negative traits and they have more negative than positive traits, they can come on. So somebody who's 2 and 1, like Mason Wynn, is good to go. However, somebody like Nolan Gorman, he has 2 negative traits. However, unless he were to forget how to play baseball or get really greedy all of a sudden, he would not qualify for the team. He would need an additional negative trait or -1 positive trait. And the last bit that goes along with that are personality classes. Here's Nolan Arenado. He is a captain. That I'm just going to count as like +1. So it would be as if he had a 3rd positive personality trait. If he was disruptive, that would count as a negative trait. So those might be a little harder to see. Have to watch out for those. But I think that's a pretty fair rule. And to define what on the team means, it just means that the player is on the 40-man roster. So that means I can have players in my organization down in the minors who are not bad personalities. And in fact, depending on how you go, that could be part of the strategy. But they can never go on the 40-man. So I can never, for example, pick up somebody in the Rule 5 draft with the intent of flipping them on a trade because they would immediately go onto my 40-man roster with their good personality. And so that's just not allowed. However, if a player... let's say a player comes in designated for assignment and he is a major leaguer and you would have to put him on your 40-man in order to take him out of that designated for assignment slot. I can go ahead and deal him from that DFA screen as long as I never bring him into the 40-man. And the same goes with anybody who can just be designated straight to AAA without going on to any sort of major league contract. That's going to be just fine. Other than that, there aren't any real rules to this challenge other than I'm going to try to keep it at least semi-realistic. There may be some sort of exploits or crazy moves I have to make. I actually don't know yet. Depends on how hard this challenge is. However, I'm going to try to keep it to things that are possible in the world of baseball, if that makes sense. I might make a couple moves that would be head scratchers, but possible in real life. However, I'm not going to do anything that is just weird or suicidal for a team or whatever. I'm not going to do anything quite like that. But we will see how that part goes. I'm going to go boot up a new save. We're going to pick a team, and I'll explain the options and my reasoning for that. And the first question, and most consequential, do you choose the Los Angeles Dodgers? Because they've got a pile of money, a pile of talent that's tradable, and so they could probably acquire all of the bad personalities they want. I think that would make the game just a little bit too easy. Same goes for the Mets. So if you want to choose a smaller market team with some talent that you can trade and talent you can hold on to, I think there's a few choices. You could go with the Arizona Diamondbacks because they have Corbin Carroll, and I'm not sure who else, but that's probably enough to build around right there. You've also got the St. Louis Cardinals, who have the aforementioned Mason Wynn and Lars Nootbaar. And yeah, you can sort of build around them too. The Cardinals have a little bit of a lack of tradable contracts, tradable talent. And so it comes down to a team with a good balance of those things who doesn't have all the money in the world. And there is one team that absolutely stands out. They have 2 superstar caliber prospects who are already in the majors. They have a serviceable shortstop. And that team is the Baltimore Orioles. And they have, as their shortstop, they have Jorge Mateo. And I find that he can perform. He can also tank. But he's usually a good gamble, I think. But then, of course, you have Jackson Holliday, who inexplicably shows a bad personality in this game. And you also have Grayson Rodriguez. So you have a star infielder, you have a star pitcher, and that is certainly enough to build around. You also don't have all the money in the world, and you're not that big of a market. And so I think that offers exactly the kind of challenge I'm looking for. And so your team will be the Baltimore Orioles. Not exactly the Orioles, we're going to change that. But the manager, as it stands right now, I'm just going to call him Bunch of Jerks. Hopefully that shows up on the screen as B Jerks. And we're going to roll with this. All right, let's jump right in and meet the team as it stands naturally. Clearly our number one guy, Jackson Holliday, good on defense, great on offense. He's going to put up 5 to 9 WAR every single year as long as he develops normally. And he's really going to be the keystone of this whole experiment. Felix Bautista, quite a solid closer. He's cheap right now too, which is nice. And then we have to scroll all the way down to the Kraken. Gary Sanchez is going to be a serviceable catcher in the beginning. Sometimes with that 45 contact, you get a little lucky. They hit 230, 240. And if he does that, he's going to be also putting up some extra base hits. So he's not a great defensive catcher. We're going to be looking to replace him. But for the time being, he is potentially serviceable. Over on the disabled list, unfortunately, is our shortstop. And shortstop, I think, is going to be one of the most difficult positions to keep manned, along with, say, center field, catcher. Second base isn't as hard, but those up-the-middle positions tend to be very difficult. And there are not a lot of players with terrible personalities at those positions. But he's out 2 months. We'll get him back down the road. Grayson Rodriguez is out 3 months, but he's a star pitcher type. He's probably going to evolve into a 4 to 5-star pitcher if it goes the way it tends to go for Grayson Rodriguez. And I think the only other guy is Albert Suarez, who, man, you don't even want this guy in long relief, but if we have to do it, we'll do it. For prospects, I don't think I have anybody in AAA that I'm really looking forward to bringing up. Same goes for AA. But for High A, I have got 2 pitchers, Michael Forret and Zach Fruit. And these are both potential major league players. If lightning strikes twice and they both get great control, then they'll do quite well on the team. But a lot of what Baltimore has going for it is the trade value of these players. And of course, Adley Rutschman, the ratings were not perfectly kind to Adley here, but he should still get a good price on the market. There's definitely some value in Cedric Mullins as a center fielder. There's often value in Tyler O'Neill, Gregory Soto, Jordan Westberg, I've seen. Maybe even Dylan Carlson. The big value, though, is in these prospects. Samuel Basallo, then Colton Cowser, Kobe Mayo, Dylan Beavers, maybe even Enrique Bradfield Jr., Judd Fabian sometimes does well in the market. Cade Povich now and then is worth something. Vance Honeycutt should do okay. Obviously, Gunnar Henderson, it's a coin flip whether or not he turns out better or Jackson Holiday turns out better. But Gunnar Henderson is going to get us something great on the market, I'm sure. Chase McDermott does a decent job trading. And I think that just about covers the players. One other thing we're going to be looking at early on is our player development budget. I would love for this to be in excess of $27 million. You want to be double the baseline or better. The diminishing returns really start kicking in, so you don't necessarily have to go up to that $40 million, but you might want to. Scouting budget, if we get that anywhere around $15 million, I should be pretty content with that. I'm not sure why our draft budget is so high. I'm assuming we got 2 first-round picks to look forward to. I'll take a look at that later, but we'll see what adjustments we have to make there. As you can see, we're starting off with a pretty good budget. In years past, the Orioles have had a budget that was maybe $30,000, $40,000 less than this, I believe. So that's a good thing. Having $26 million available right now is fine. We can potentially get rid of Zach Eflin, and Tyler O'Neill might be a little tougher. We can definitely shave some payroll here. We don't need a lot of that. One of the keys to this game is going to be right here. I think I'm going to fire everybody, most likely. If we go over to the staff roles, we're going to see that none of these guys work particularly well together, and there's even a little bit of dislike in there. If we go over to the team chemistry, right now it doesn't look too bad. They're not going to be content for very long. I don't know how far this will drop. Probably the lowest I've ever seen it. It's probably going to be I think feuding is the lowest or one of the lowest. And I'm expecting them to kind of jump right into that by mid-season of the first year. And they're all going to be complaining about each other, and they're all going to be listed over here on this side. It's going to be quite something. But if we go back to the personnel, the key here is going to be to have a mix of likability between each other so that they can get up to ecstatic staff cohesion. And we want the talent levels of the coaches to be outstanding or legendary. We might have to take one excellent, say in teach running is sometimes hard to get up to that really high standard. But we'll see what we can do with that. I want to see what kind of scouting director I have. Neutral. I'm not sure what they changed for OTP 26 as far as the scouting goes, but it does seem like you still want that highly favored tool scout. So we're going to look into replacing him. And going to see what our team trainer's like. This is not the worst team trainer. This is okay. I don't like the average fatigue recovery. That's the one thing that's really bad here. Also, the prevent arms is good is quite bad as well. So we'll be looking to move on from him. Probably not picking up Rick Jameson because Rick Jameson's starting to get old. A few years ago in this game, you could have a long and lovely relationship with Rick Jameson, but now it's a little bit more of a risk because when you lose your trainer, it can be quite hard to replace him with somebody who's comparable. So we'll most likely be looking for coaches that are a bit on the younger side. That's a bit of a luxury, though. We'll take that as it comes. All right, before we get too deep into the trades and the moves we're going to make, let's meet the owner. This is Mr. Oldie Buttgoody. I've gone ahead and smoothed out his tendencies just because I don't want that to be part of the challenge. He can still fire us, though, and we're never going to have a top 6 farm team, so we're going to fail this goal. But we might reach the playoffs. We might make the World Series in 5 years. We're definitely declining the improved team chemistry goal because that's impossible. So we're going to go with improved fan interest, which it's already at 82, and we are going to offload some popular players. So it is possible to recover that, but that is going to be a challenge in its own right. And let's go into some game settings because I have changed a few significant things here. Injuries are at low, and the reason for that is basically I don't want to run out of players, and that seems like it's going to be very possible. So we're going to keep that at low. Don't worry, they're still going to injure our superstars because this game always does that to you. Batting age and pitching age, we have lowered the aging speed and made the aging target age older. I just want a smoother curve. It will be effectively a slightly larger player pool if we do that. And I think that'll make the game more fun. You spend more time with the players you like. We are doing a 20-person development lab, nice robust size. Not the full 30, but 20 should be great. And I am disabling the individual little sliders just because I don't want to manage that. It is a cool feature. AI settings, I have bumped down the trading difficulty ever so slightly. The only reason for that is maybe I want a throw-in 2-star player in a trade, and that's about all you're going to get out of that. Maybe you'll get an extra $100,000 of throw-in money, that kind of thing. That may be crucial to us. Then I've gone 40, 30, 20, 10 on the AI evaluations. We're going to make the game ever so slightly easier by doing that, and I don't really mind. No changes here. Changes to the rules. We're getting rid of the Ghost Runner crud. Ties after the 15th inning is fine. Bumping International Complex to 60. Disabling the right to refuse a minor league assignment and disabling the 10-5 rule. Because those are both just kind of fun killers. We are not using the weird trade deadline setup with the reputation and the hard mode. We're not going to do any of that. And we're not going to allow draft pick trading. That should be about it. I did change the generate players to 33 from 30. Again, I just want a slightly larger playing pool. No financial changes. We are going to allow the league to develop with the exception of DH rule. I want that to stay the same. And then the active and secondary rosters, I want to leave mainly because of a bug I've encountered in years past where any change to the active roster size, the game just bumped you up to a 40-man active roster, and that's a little bit ridiculous. We are not allowing rainouts. Obviously, that's kind of silly, but, maybe you want that in there. And we're going to break our ties with tiebreaker games if it comes down to the playoffs. We've bumped the randomness of the generated players. We have also gone from 10 to 20 international established free agents. We're going to have more scouting discoveries. Basically, again, we need that larger playing pool. And the final real impactful change is going to be catcher framing impact. It's normally here at 5 when you boot up the game, I believe. We're going to move that up to 7. The reason is I want there to be 2 ways to have a good catcher. I want to have that good hitting catcher, and maybe his framing rating only needs to be like 45, and he's fine, as long as he's got an arm. And if you bump that framing impact up to 7, all of a sudden your guys who can't hit very well, like your Jose Trevinos, but who are magicians with the glove and with calling pitches, we can now simulate the effect of having a good catcher behind the plate. And those are the rules changes, and let's get into the action and make some deals. I have painstakingly gone through every player in this game. I've picked out all of the 2-star or better major leaguers and all of the 2.5-star prospects that meet our criteria. And there are some great players in here. You've got your Corbin Carroll, you've got Our Jackson Holiday, you've got Emmanuel Clase, Tarek Skubal, of course. Even a good catcher. So let's go by position here for just a minute. Henry Davis, long-term target, short-term target. I'm just always going to be watching Henry Davis. I will probably be stalking him. I hope that doesn't make him feel uncomfortable. You would like to pick up something like a Blake Mitchell, but I'd be fine with a Ben Rice, or even keeping Gary Sanchez as a backup, although I forgot he was making so much money. Yeah, we're going to have to dump him. So catcher, we're okay for the minute, but Henry Davis is definitely where we're headed in the long run. Over at first base, we've got some options like Lars Nootbaar. Tristan Casas is a little expensive in ARB first year, going straight up to 4.5. That's going to be a really expensive player down the road. So we might not be interested in him. Isaac Paredes for the same reason. He's even more expensive. But Spencer Torkelson is reasonable. He's looking to ARB for about 3.2. And New Bar is looking to ARB for the second time at 6.5, which is probably quite reasonable. And in a pinch, he can play left or right field. That's mostly who I'm looking at as you go down the list. Jake Cronenworth's already on an expensive contract. Oscar Colas might be a consideration. But we are a little lean at first base. As we move over to second, we've got that on lockdown with Jackson Holliday. He does not have the chops to play third or short, really. So keeping him at second base as long as we possibly can and trying to sign him immediately, maybe even on day one, is going to be the way to go with Jackson Holliday. There are some other options. There's Zach Geloff, who's looking quite nice. He's got a bit more team control left. Getting him as early as possible would be great. He can slot into a couple spots in our infield. But you can see it is a bit lean. If I sort by overall potential, anybody 2.5 stars or better is what I'm looking for. Casey Schmidt might be an option. He's young, cheap, ready to go. Cody Clemens, how are you looking? Maybe a utility guy, but not really. He can't really play second or short. Possibility, though. And if we move over to short, it's basically just Mason Wynn. Jorge Mateo's there. I wanted Mason Wynn to play third base for us because look at that arm. That arm in that range, that's Nolan Arenado territory. But his turn double play and his error is just good enough. He can definitely put up a good shortstop season, and so it might be best to slot him there. And then when we get around to third base, then it gets a little more complicated. Maybe that's where an Isaac Paredes, even though he's very expensive, maybe that's where he slots in. And then maybe that's where you put Zach Geloff, who's not... Whoops. I didn't want to look up his whole team. He's not going to be the best third baseman. He's going to be 50 rated probably. But not a disaster. We can maybe work on that. So tough goings on at third. If we look at center field, there are more options. I really like Kyle Isbell. He's not going to ARB for all that much money in his what looks to be his second arbitration season. And he's got great ratings, good enough hitting. And then the other premium option, besides obviously Corbin Carroll, I don't think Corbin can play center in this save. They're selling him short on his range for sure. His arm, too. Nevertheless, Brenton Doyle, two-time Gold Glove winner. This is another good option. I don't know if the Rockies would be interested in cutting him loose. ARBing for 3.3 in his first year is pretty high, but, center fielders, you got to pay a premium sometimes. So we'll see about that. I don't think Jaron Duran is the direction we want to go in. Okay, I see why he's not ARBing for next year. He's already on a team option. That's a strange contract. $8 million wouldn't be the worst, to be honest. And if we switch over to left and right field, you'll see a couple other names drop in here, like your Spencer Torkelson's, your Griffin Conines. How's Cody Clemens looking? Not amazing, although he is another option for third base. As you can see, he has the outspoken class, which is 1 to the negative, plus the greed. So he does qualify for the team. Juan Yepez? Yeah, I didn't think he could play the outfield in this save. Potential first baseman DH type. Unlikely to make a big impact. One problem is in right field. Yes, you need your defense up the middle, but you need your big arm in right. And so, as you can see from the names here, we've seen them all before already. that's going to potentially be a difficult position to fill. So we'll see how that goes. As for starters, starters are where it's most interesting. Tarek Skubal, obviously. Logan Webb, Zach Gallen, two guys we'd want to get a hold of. If we could get this three, then I would be super happy to have like a Ranger Suarez and a Nick Pivetta or some combination like that. Lance McCullers is a little expensive, but still okay. Kodai Senga, same deal. Oh, and of course, I'm sorry, I forgot about our very own Grayson Rodriguez. So yeah, I would like to have 6 guys who are capable of starting. And I also want to get maybe like a David Festa in there and maybe an Edward Cabrera? Possibly. I do want to have some of my bullpen able to starting pitch because there's going to be injuries. And also, the reliever class is incredibly light. Look at this. I mean, Jose Ferrer's got some potential. It's ugly out there. That's all I gotta say about that. It's going to be very difficult to get a hold of high quality relievers, but we will cross that bridge when we come to it. So that should be all of the positions. It shows you everyone we're going to be targeting, and at this point, I'm going to call that apart. When we come back next time, there will be actual deals on the board. We'll also take a look at some of the coaches I'll be hiring for this season and get this thing underway. So thank you very much for watching. I think this is going to be an amazing playthrough. Probably the most fun already that I've had playing this game in years. So I hope you'll join me for the next one. So long. Take care.